It's time for a Wellness Revolution. Brought to you by Hotze Health and Wellness Center. Honest discussion on maintaining health and wellness naturally to enjoy a better quality of life.
He's the doctor fighting to let you keep your doctorate.
Now, Dr. Stephen Hotze.
Welcome to Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. I'm Stacy Banfield here, and I am pleased to have Dr. Donald Ellsworth, who is a member of our team, on the program today. And Dr. Ellsworth is going to be discussing functional medicine. Now, I know he doesn't want me to do this, but I am going to read his bio because I think it's very important to know where people are coming from, what their history is, and I think you'll be very impressed as well to know his background. So, Dr. Ellsworth has been a provider here at the Hotze Health and Wellness Center since 2003. He graduated from Vanderbilt with high honors with a Bachelor of Science degree in molecular biology and engineering science. He graduated from the University of South Carolina School of Medicine with honors in 1986. He then went on to complete a residency in family medicine at Richland Memorial Hospital in 1989. Following his medical training, he served in the United States Air Force as a medical officer at Tinker, Oklahoma for 4 years. He then joined the teaching faculty at the Saints Family Medicine Residency in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma in 1993, where he enjoyed teaching medical students and residents in a broad range of medical conditions. Dr. Ellsworth and his wife Sylvia, my mom's name, had long shared a mutual interest in serving overseas by doing medical ministry. So in 1994, Dr. Ellsworth moved with his family to the newly independent country of Uzbekistan, where he served as the medical director of a nonprofit organization. During this time, Dr. Ellsworth recognized the need for the public to have basic information to help prevent disease and promote wellness. He also saw the need to equip both the public and the medical community with practical ways to treat illnesses using locally available resources. He spent several years studying, researching, and working with a team to write the first home medical textbook in the Uzbek language. He also led a team which produced the first school health program. The school health programs and a health book for everyone are still in use to this day. Dr. Ellsworth also spearheaded important initiatives such as anemic awareness and treatment program for young women and children, as well as a hypothyroidism prevention and treatment program using locally available iodine. Dr. Ellsworth also lectured on a wide array of health issues to the community. Now, the 8 years of ministry that he had were almost cut in half when his wife Sylvia became ill with chronic fatigue, allergies, and weakness. 1 year later, conventional treatments had failed to explain or resolve her health issues. Providentially, Dr. Ellsworth ran across Dr. Crook's book, The Yeast Connection, and found to his amazement that her health returned once the yeast was treated. Later, they discovered that natural thyroid and progesterone provided a natural solution to the miscarriages they had experienced and thankfully culminated in the healthy birth of their fourth child. After 8 years, the Ellsworth family returned from overseas to Dr. Ellsworth's native home of Houston. Dr. Ellsworth's research led him to attend the Pan American Allergy Society medical conference to learn more about treating allergies in natural medicine. That is where he met Dr. Hotze, who shared with him the Wellness Center's method of treatment. Dr. Ellsworth's personal journey and his background in natural medicine made him a perfect fit for the Wellness Center, and consequently, he joined our staff in 2003. Dr. Ellsworth is dedicated to helping our guests obtain and maintain health and wellness naturally. And of course, he's always abreast of the latest medical research. Dr. Ellsworth, welcome to the program.
What a mouthful. Thank you, Stacy.
But so fascinating. You really do have an amazing history, and it's so impressive all those years you spent in Uzbekistan and the medical contributions that you made to that culture. That is absolutely awesome.
It was a great time. And as we've done natural medicine, our goal has always been to continually improve. And one thing that led us to go down the functional medicine track and training that Angelica Clark and I did is there's always more that you want to learn, more tools, and we're often seeing people that have seen many doctors and no one's been able to help them, and you're always like, gosh, if I only had one more tool to help that person.
Sure.
We're always looking for that extra piece of information, that extra way of looking at things. And what's interesting about the functional medicine paradigm that we've just completed the training in and certification is it basically teaches you to look for the root causes, which is what we've been doing all along, honestly, but at a deeper level. And that's all it's about, is digging deep. And the model that we often think of is a tree, and thinking of how based on what's going on in the ground and the root system will determine what's going up in the leaves and the fruit, if you think of a fruit-bearing tree. And a lot of times our current medical model acts like you can just look at a leaf or look at a piece of fruit.
So a separate piece. People know this all the time. They have stomach pain and they're given something for that symptom instead of what's causing it.
So the disease or diagnosis that somebody has can often be caused by a bunch of different causes. And sometimes one identical issue, like the standard American diet, can cause a lot of different health problems. One person might get polycystic ovarian syndrome, another obesity, another hypertension, another diabetes. And it's all based on their genetics and background. And the functional medicine model teaches you to identify what are the main issues going on there. And what it turns out is that it's, of course, your basics of your lifestyle have a lot to do with your health, but you identify how that really sinks in with the health problems. And what winds up happening is we don't so much get sick with the disease as we develop imbalances in our body. And that's one of the key concepts that is a takeaway from me when I think of functional medicine is it's all the more just identifying that, for example, if the gut's unhealthy, well, you're not going to assimilate things properly, and you're not going to be digesting, and your elimination processes are off, and so your detox pathways are off. And when your microbiome is unhealthy, that's your inner microbial world, you're going to experience all these weird symptoms, and they may have nothing to do with your gut. You might be feeling tired, like when my wife was sick in Uzbekistan. It mainly had to do with the fact that, well, let me back up and just say, when it was all said and done, after months of searching for what was wrong with her, the problem was in the mirror. Because I'm the one that had given her the antibiotics for her sinus infection that threw off her gut.
Really?
So I had been looking for, all these, I was going everywhere, doing research, networking, and all I had to do was look in the mirror. But the problem is our medical system really didn't warn me about the negatives of antibiotics like we really need to
You only
understand.
heard it in the positive, like, okay, it's going to do this. It's going to kill the bad bacteria.
Or the immediate negative reactions. Okay, the rashes, that sort of thing.
Side effects.
Turns out that the way it changes our gut in terms of the microbial world not only affects you short term, it can affect you long term. Because when you get things like yeast in the mold world overgrowing, it doesn't necessarily reset just by healthy living, just by eating well, because those are really tenacious organisms. So by learning to focus more on these root issues that tend to throw off our health, and in this case with my wife, when we got her gut healthy and for a while did an elimination diet, she was completely normal for the first time in over a year.
It's incredible.
And we had tried so many things and talked to so many different healthcare professionals. So what I've realized with the functional medicine toolkit is that we can see a lot of complex problems and look at them from more what the root issues are, not necessarily with the diagnosis that they're walking through the door with. Because somebody might be walking in saying, boy, I feel depressed, or my memory's off, or I'm just so tired I can hardly function. There's a long list of possibilities there, but it really all comes down to the way their lifestyle, their genetics, and their life experience have come together to throw off their body and create imbalances. And the model that we learn teaches us how to look for those root causes and treating them naturally, get them back into balance. And that's...
Okay, so you found that through this model and this approach, it allows you to be more comprehensive and you're asking more questions. You're going a little bit more broadly so that you can get to the root cause. Is that what?
Yeah, we're digging. So, like for example, one of the things that we like to do is get a good timeline in functional medicine, because often what will happen is someone will actually let you know, I was doing pretty well until, and you really want to dig into the issues that occurred around that time, because that's often giving you a great piece of information as to the major imbalances in their body. I was feeling fine until my child was born. I was feeling fine until menopause. I was feeling fine until I was sick and took several rounds of antibiotics and steroids, and I haven't been the same since. Those key issues are often what really help us. And sometimes it's misleading. Sometimes people think that the main issue is related to something that happened at the same time, and it's only indirectly related because it threw off their balances in their body, but they still think it was that specific issue that's somehow holding them back. So the functional medicine model just teaches you to dig deeper in that whole area.
It's really quite amazing. What was going through my mind as you were explaining that is why isn't this already in conventional medicine? Isn't that sad? I mean, you had your medical degree, and then you found another path through trial and error and different things, and
Mm-hmm.
then you found the wellness center and all that. It's all sort of built on itself. But then, I mean, on top of that, going out there and getting this certification with the Institute of Functional Medicine, I mean, that's going above and beyond what the average practitioner does, but it's definitely going to help people, having that additional knowledge.
I think it's the medicine of the future is to get to the root issue.
Hmm.
But it is interesting that if you have to use the current coding system by which insurance is paid out, you have to put things in a box.
Right.
And many of the ways that I will be thinking about the person across the desk from me has very little to do with any of those boxes. So I can't put them, and sometimes just for, yeah, I'll put them in the closest box I can just because that's something you're supposed to do as far
Hmm.
as charting. But it's interesting that I feel like I'm being forced to think a certain way when I fill out some of these forms. That's very unnatural to me now, because now I think more in terms of imbalances. And that root issue is something that I think more and more doctors are actually catching on to this, to be fair to it's a small but growing movement, because there's a growing dissatisfaction with just treating things based on the label and the approved medications. I think 2021, 2020, 2021 has caused a lot of people to rethink their faith in some of the things that the medical world says, because a lot of statements have been said and then later have been shown to be false. And to me, that's a microcosm of what we've actually been seeing all along,
Sure.
is that it's not like there's nothing good in traditional medicine, but it has dramatic limitations. It doesn't look for the root cause. And because the approval process biases people towards things that can be patented, and you can't patent natural things, you're going to be heavily slated towards using artificial treatments. Whereas if you're actually thinking about imbalances, you're naturally going to work with the things that are behind the imbalance, which is usually the lifestyle, the nutritional support, the hormonal support, the detox support, and you can get somebody's health back doing things you never even heard about in medical school or your training.
So what would be an example of that?
Well, with the issue with the gut and getting my wife's health back,
Hmm.
that would be a common issue. But we often will see people in our office who have hormonal imbalance, and I never realized how often I was seeing hormonal imbalance, and I just thought it was something that was a normal thing. Premenstrual syndrome is typically low progesterone, and something as simple as getting the body back into balance with a little progesterone makes a world of difference. As to a lot of anxiety and panic attacks can be related to things like low progesterone, but it might even be that the gut's unhealthy, and it could be that there's too much yeast. It might even be bacteria that are overgrown. And a lot of people will react to foods when their gut's unhealthy and feel panic symptoms. And I've realized
That's really
a lot of
incredible.
panic attacks are simply an unhealthy gut.
This is really important because it seems like more and more people are anxious, stressed, having panic attacks. It seems like we're seeing more and more of that. Certainly, everything related to COVID didn't help. The thought that part of that might be coming from a gut imbalance is amazing.
Well, another interesting part of the paradigm that we're using is that you think of the modifiable lifestyle issues, and you think of things like how much sleep you're getting, your activity level, your exercise, what you're eating, how you deal with stress. In the functional world, there's a fifth category that had never really occurred to me, and that's relationships. And what we saw in this past, 20, 15 months or so that we've been dealing with COVID is people have gone through tremendous changes in their mental health and in their physical health as a result of being isolated. Now, of course, not everybody went through this,
Right.
but for those who, for whatever reason, were more isolated, sometimes it was very involuntary, by the way. Some folks were like, I'm ready to get together, but all my friends are afraid and they won't get together with me. And,
Right.
so a lot of folks were feeling great angst at the fact that they were isolated, and sometimes even from family members. And this issue, depression, anxiety, I think I really came to appreciate how true that is how much we actually need healthy relationships to be healthy. And that's honestly kind of a weird thought to me, to realize how much we need other people. It's not just what we eat. It's not getting on the treadmill alone. It's not, having a healthy gut alone. It's really the whole package. And that's why we often see these communities around the world, where like in Italy, there's been some communities where people hardly get any diseases. And it turns out that one of their secrets to their success is not necessarily that they eat things that are not processed, and that's usually part of it, but it's that they actually have very close relationships.
Right.
They have a long list of, these are my best friends. And, the more you have those, the better. So one of the important things you want to do if you want to be healthy is, get out there and connect with people, and don't try to do it alone, which a lot of Americans are kind of lone ranger types.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's very easy to fall into patterns where maybe you're not being as social as you want to be. COVID certainly didn't help with that. But it's so interesting you're saying this now, because I just listened to a sermon this past Sunday where it just talked about the key drivers for people. And it's that sense of belonging and a sense of worth. And if you don't feel like you belong, and if you don't feel like you're worth anything, then that's not going to just affect, your mental health or your spiritual health, but your physical health. There's a strong connection there.
There is. And I think we also saw that really come to play. People who are really grounded spiritually just tend to cope better with a world that's very unstable and unpredictable and changing. So it might be stressful for everybody, but the more you're grounded at that level, the better off you are. And so that it is amazing. But the functional paradigm has been useful in many ways. One recent test that was run showed an overgrowth of bacteria. And it was a bacteria that's not rare. And just by getting rid of the bacteria, this person's joint pain dramatically improved. And you're like, what? But that's actually documented, that these overgrowths of certain organisms can cause autoimmune issues, can cause joint issues. And yet we still don't really emphasize this in our training, that it's, these are things you want to consider looking at. Not everybody needs every test. And that's
Right.
also part of the art of doing this well, is not to order every test you can think of, but to order the ones that are the most strategic, and usually start with what's obvious and dig deeper as you need to.
Yeah, I mean, that's very important, because people will go for years and years and years, kind of hit or miss, trying to figure out the solution to their problem, and never knowing, like you said, that it could be something maybe bacterial that's causing the joint pain. So they just go in a completely different direction because they're just going off of maybe what their conventional doctor is telling them, or it can be really tricky, to just kind of tease that out, what's really going on. So then with the functional medicine approach, what other symptoms or diseases do you think would be treatable with that?
The nice thing about the functional medicine approach is it's really not based on, okay, I treat these diagnoses or these symptoms. It's based on, I'm treating the person in front of me in the context of what's been going on in their life and the imbalances that they have. So in some ways, it's irrelevant what the diagnosis is. It's, to be fair, there are some diagnoses that will be inherently more challenging than others, but you still, by looking at the root issues, you'll often see improvement that you would not have seen had you not addressed getting those imbalances back in shape. So I think that it's really a long list of things. Some of the conditions that I don't know that there's anything that's totally unique, but the number of tools that we have for helping those who are suffering with energy issues or mood issues or not sleeping well or having coronary artery disease. There's a hypertension. I have many more tools in my toolkit, and I have many more paradigms that I can look at that person through. But most importantly, identifying what's going on in that person uniquely as much as humanly possible.
That's just wonderful. I mean, it's wonderful to be able to have that and to be able to serve people more effectively this way. And it does seem to be, the cutting edge, functional medicine, which was really kind of funny because it circles back to that art of medicine that used to be back in the day when people would actually listen to their guests. But now you can do it in a much more targeted, effective way.
And this was the process of being a certified functional medicine practitioner is a fairly long one. It took me over 2 years. And it wasn't as long as my residency training, but it felt like an extension of it. It was a very, very serious program where you present a case review, a very challenging exam, and it was kind of fun in the sense that it was mastering an enormous amount of useful information that we think about all the time, whether it's just the detail, but the details were very interesting just to see how they all interconnect in a deeper level. And I think that really just goes to the commitment we have as a practice that is focused on natural medicine. We're committed to excellence, of digging deeper, of pushing the envelope, and being a practice that is really focused on getting to the root cause of what's going on when people walk through our doors. They've often seen multiple practitioners prior to coming to see us. And what we want to be able to offer them is a fresh set of eyes that look at them uniquely, that dig deeper because we're just more aware of all the different factors that go on. And we've been trained to put a different set of lenses on so that some things that would not be obvious just pop up. When you're thinking in terms of these interrelationships, these different ways, there's the assimilation, the biotransformation, the communication, the defense and repair systems, our structure, whether it's the cellular structure or bones, our energy-making system, the mitochondria or transport systems. When you're thinking in terms of how could that be imbalanced, how could that be affected by some of the core lifestyles, how could that be affected by genetics, and developing a plan to implement it and then evaluating how you're doing, it gives you a way of processing somebody's health concerns in a way that's really quite unique from the traditional, okay, you have this major diagnosis and these are the top things that were normally prescribed for it, and that's the way we're going to go. Because that type of medicine is not taking into account both the biochemical individuality and the unique issues that person is facing, and it's also typically from an unnatural perspective. It's like somebody's feeling depressed is not antidepressant deficient.
Exactly.
And is obvious, and a lot of people are taking stimulants these days. Well, you're not tired because of a stimulant deficiency. So as much as humanly possible, you want to be digging into the reason why that person is tired, why that person is depressed, or why there's any abnormal process going on. Atherosclerosis, for example, statin drugs are popular these days, but they're not very effective in many cases, and they're not usually addressing the key thing that needs to be addressed, because cholesterol by itself is not the reason people develop heart disease, except in very uncommon genetic conditions. It's typically related to the inflammation in the body.
Yes.
It's related to all the things that go on that cause damage to our walls. And what you want to do is correct that naturally, and you get not only better results, but you don't have the side effects you get with these medications, the fatigue, sore muscles.
Absolutely. Well, it's been very impressive what you've achieved, and it's a rigorous program. So congratulations on achieving that certification. And is there anything else you want to share with our audience before we go? You were pretty thorough.
No, I just think that, someone coming to see us can be confident that we are committed to that ongoing process of improving. And so even though we've been doing this longer than a lot of folks have ever thought about doing a natural medicine practice, a lot of people are getting into this initially. we are not sitting back and resting on our laurels. We're continuing to push the envelope forward, and that's our commitment to you.
Dr. Ellsworth, we're so blessed to have you on our team. And if any of this resonated with you about functional medicine, you can always give us a call at 281-698-8698. That's 281-698-8698. We'd be more than happy to give you a complimentary consultation and a complimentary copy of Dr. Hotze's first book, Hormones, Health, and Happiness. Thank you for joining us here today on Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution.
Information provided on this radio program is neither intended nor implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice and is not intended to replace the services of a physician, nor does it constitute a doctor-patient relationship. You should not use information from this radio program to diagnose or treat a health problem or disease without consulting with a qualified healthcare provider. If you have or suspect you have an urgent medical problem, promptly contact a professional healthcare provider or call 911. Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution radio program advises you to always seek the advice of a physician or other qualified health provider prior to starting any new treatment or with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Any application of the recommendations from this radio program is at the listener's discretion.